Hello everyone, I'm Guildmaster Dan and welcome to The Fourth Wall, the show where every time you share a video, a cat does this. Now last time we started talking about the main two responsibilities of Game Masters regardless of style. More specifically, we talked about how to make your game fun for your players. Today, we're going to be going to the other side of it and talking about how to run yourself a fair world. To run a fair world is to run it as though it worked like the real world. That is to say, that it feels like a place that could actually exist, even with its different laws of reality. It still follows the same cause and effect that our world does. Now, even beyond good storytelling, having your NPCs talk like real people and having your adventures have a logical progression to them. There's other ways that you can make your world feel like a real place. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what I recommend to make your world run like a real place is to follow through with consequences and run your enemies with a sense of self-preservation. Now, first one, following through with consequences, what I mean is, well, frankly, if your players make stupid decisions, follow through with the consequences of those stupid decisions. If most of the party is wounded in on the other side of enemy lines, and the rest of the party decides to keep going anyway and come back, it's perfectly acceptable that they should meet their deaths, or if let's see, if there's rumors of a sleeping elder dragon on an island that no one who ever goes there ever returns, and they decide to go there and poke that sleeping dragon, it's perfectly acceptable that dragon will kill them. Or even beyond just death, if somebody in your party casts a spell in town, like even something as simple as a sleep spell, maybe they got annoyed at another player or one of the NPCs, one of the townsfolk, and put them to sleep. Well, that sort of thing would be illegal, and the town guard would respond rather harshly, especially since spellcasters are so dangerous. I wouldn't be surprised if most towns would completely forbid spellcasting inside town unless, otherwise have a permit or something. It's very likely that, those guards are going to come en masse with weapons already drawn, as soon as they hear it, and, that spellcaster very likely to be imprisoned, thrown in a dungeon and have their hands broken and their tongue cut out. I mean, that might be a little extreme depending upon how superstitious and how harsh your town is, but there's going to be serious consequences for breaking the laws in town and letting yourself get, caught. Point is, if your characters make stupid decisions and there's never any consequences to them, then there's no weight to their decisions. It doesn't matter what they do because they're always going to come out on top. Now, you have to follow through with these negative events. Of course, it's not fun to die. It's not fun to be in prison and have all your toys taken away. It's not supposed to be fun, but that's what adds risk to your game. If you're going into battle knowing that you could die, that makes it a hell of a lot more exciting and makes you think a lot more about what you're going to do in that combat. It makes it seem a lot more important on, what you're going to do next. And generally just gives you a more exciting and fulfilling experience. Now, piggybacking off that last one, the combat, the other way that I mentioned, the running your enemies with a sense of self-preservation. What I mean by that is those enemies that they came across, in the same way that players don't want to die, those characters wouldn't want to die either. Those bandits wouldn't want to, be to march into combat and be slaughtered and have their bodies looted. No, they want to take their ill-gotten gains and get a have a hot meal or help feed their family. They're not just going to fight until the last one of them dies, because they don't want to die. They're gonna act in a way that they will get the advantage on the players, because otherwise they wouldn't do it. For example, if they're being overpowered, there's no reason why they wouldn't run. They don't want to just stay there and get cut down. They might run, or even better, before even engaging with them, they might do it a lot more intelligently. Maybe instead of just ambushing the players, they dog them along their trail. They shoot arrows at them and keep nicking away their health and their cleric's healing spells until finally they look beaten and weary, and then they ambush them because they have a much better advantage. The party is much weaker. That sounds a lot more like a living being deciding the easiest way to keep from dying and keep living to eat another meal. Now, granted, not everything's intelligent in your world. Animals are, when they get cornered, they'll fight back very fiercely. But if their life is in danger, if they're really losing, they're liable to just run and not come back. Now, unless they're maybe in a blood frenzy, or like I said, you literally back them in a corner and they don't have an option. But animals don't want to die. Stupid things don't want to die, but they'll still act in the best interest of their self-preservation, with exception to soulless things like automatons or zombies. It doesn't matter to them because they have no motivation. They're just being controlled by the person with motivation. Now, granted, that whoever summoned them, they'll act with self-preservation, maybe throwing the goblins if they're throwing golems and zombies at players, they'll probably throw goblins at them too. But they're likely to just throw them in the way and then run. The point is, just like your players don't want to die or get in prison or anything like that, none of the enemies that they fight will want that either. Orcs want to keep living to raping and pillaging. Cannibals want to live another day so that they can keep eating people. Don't just have your enemies fight. Actually have them think and act as though they want to live tomorrow. Ultimately, that makes your encounters a lot more varied and a lot more exciting because it's more challenging. They're thinking on the same level as the players are. And when the players are desperate to make sure that they stay alive, and the people they're fighting are desperate to make sure that they stay alive, that battle's feeling a lot more real, and it can go in any direction because of just the many different ways that those two groups can go into that combat. Gary Gygax wrote a great article on this topic called How to Be an Effective Dungeon Master, which appeared in his module Keep on the Borderlands. In it, he talks about how to run enemies realistically, and how to make your world feel more real. Even beyond just being from Gary Gygax, it's a great read, has some great advice. I would recommend it to any Game Master out there. If you remember back in the first episode when I mentioned I've been to Game Master workshops, this was always in the packet. We always started off our day by reading this because it really is a great article and really gets right to what it means to be a dungeon master or game master in any game. Just to recap, if you want to run your world fairly, which you really should because it's going to make your world more diversified and more exciting, what I recommend is follow through with consequences to your character's actions and run your enemies with a sense of self-preservation because, again, nobody likes dying. If you disagreed with anything I had to say, or if there's something you'd like to add, or even if you have a suggestion for something you'd like me to talk about in the future, please feel free to leave a comment below. I'll make sure to include a link to that article for anybody who wants to give it a read. Again, I highly recommend it. And as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. And remember,